Grana Weepon Nidibong, and welcome back to my channel. And today we are finally gonna get to those questions that we set to the team at Vetron Labs, and they've come back to us, and now we're gonna go through the answers that we have. But just if you're not exactly sure who Vetron Labs are, Vetron Labs are a new third-party team who are creating this that you can see by the side of me, which is their take on a Devastator. Now, as I've said before on this channel, Bobby Skullface has already done a kind of interview with this team, and if you don't know, then just to bring you up to date, there's a bit of controversy around the company itself, Vetron Labs. There's rumors about them not paying people, there's rumors about the whole thing being a scam, so a lot of people in my community were saying whenever I was talking about them, why are you talking about these? They're a scam, they're not doing anything. I was like, okay, well, let's see if we can find out to something. And Vetron Labs actually reached out to us and said, hey, you know, we're not a scam with this, with that. So I said, okay, let's do an interview. So this will be the first of what will hopefully be 2 interviews, and this is the written piece. Now, before we get into the written side of things, obviously there is no way that we can go back on some of the answers that they've given here, so this will really be me kind of reading it and then musing, and I'm really interested in what your thoughts are as well on their answers, so let me know down in the comments. But also, there is multiple languages working here. This company seems to be all over the world. I think they were working with people in Italy, China, all kinds of different places. So obviously I am working in English and this has been translated, so there may be some little bit of things that are lost in translation where we may have to think for ourselves maybe a little bit. Also, when it comes to the questions themselves, most of these questions were set by you beautiful people in this community. You gave me the questions and I bundled them all together and sent them over to the team at Vetron Labs. Now, you may think that's not the question that I asked. Lots of people asked lots of different variations on one kind of question, so what I've done is kind of merge those into one question that's quite open to allow for the biggest answer possible from the team. Before we get cracking as well, team, I've also made down in the bottom, there is chapters, so if you want to go and skip ahead to specific questions, because this is a long video, then you can. Just go down, look at the chapters, by questions. All right, team. So without further ado then, let's take a look at the first questions. So the first questions that we asked them was how would you describe your marketing technique? Now, we're going to take this answer in 2 sections here. So the first answer was experiment them in search of something new. Completely out of every scheme. Unlike the standard fees of 3P or third party, which before us have always had a calm and reserved communication wrapped almost absent. So we wanted to manifest ourselves with a new form of communication and marketing more confidential with our customers. Okay, so as you can see, like I said, the translation here can be a little bit challenging at times, but what I believe they're trying to say here is that they wanted to do something different with the marketing, and they wanted to experiment. They potentially have the feeling that some third-party companies don't really market their product too much, and they wanted to do something different. And I think we maybe saw this a little bit at the beginning because they went to one of the TF cons and took everybody through what they were going to do. But obviously after that, at some point their marketing campaign must have changed, right? Because they started cancelling a lot of the things they were planning to do at TFCon, and maybe we'll get into that later on. But let's just say from this bit, we can understand that they wanted to do something a little bit different. So the second part of the answer here, I think this kind of speaks more to what they want to do in the future. We thus understood that many customers / collectors love speed, and perhaps some of them push just to hurry to see their complete collection, sometimes neglecting the quality of the model itself. Starting this year, we want to give collectors something more in addition to our models, something that can further enhance and improve the quality of Transformers collecting, and which can also give collectors a more evolved concept of Transformers masterpiece collecting. Many don't know what is hidden behind it, or they have just a vague or confused or wrong idea, so also thought of opening the doors to collectors in this sector to tell them where the KO and OS and how they're designed and the challenges behind them, and other still interesting things, which can also give rise to future realities. We are not afraid of competition, and we would like to establish ourselves as a daughter of competition and challenges. So, second section. So I believe in this section what they're trying to say is, starting this year, they want to be a more open company. They want to maybe shine a little bit of light on what goes on behind the scenes of third parties and KO and OS, and open their doors to kind of more of the processes, the creation, and what goes on behind it, which I would welcome. I think that would be really, really good. I think a lot of people don't know what goes on in these companies, probably for some good reason. Like, if Hasbro knows too much, maybe they bring that hammer down, especially on the KO side of the market. And we've seen this, I believe it was with Jimbo and things like that in the past. So there's probably reasons why people aren't that open, but hey, if they want to be, then they are. And I guess that this interview, and certainly what they did with Bobby at the beginning, does really speak right to that. So I guess their marketing technique is they want to be a bit more open and do something different. I think for me, people probably wanted to understand a little bit more about why the products keep changing and why it started off looking like this and then looking like this instead of looking like this, instead of just coming and saying this is what our Devastator is going to look like. Now, I get, okay, they're saying they want to show the process and they want to show this, but I think there is a line that can be drawn, especially if it hasn't been explained correctly, between confusing your audience, which is probably what's happened here, and having a clear strategy and a clear plan. And I think that's probably where they've lost it a little bit, with the constant changes that are made to the project without almost bringing your audience with you. I think that's kind of where the challenges is, and I think that's probably what people wanted to know here, maybe a little bit deeper. Moving on to question number 2 then. What made you want to choose Devastator as your first project? And the answer we got was, for 35 years, we have seen the succession of many generations of Devastators. The first toy dedicated to the Hasbro and Takara Tomy animated series, the Sumbo Studio, which has maintained the design for a long time, from the toys to the character in the 80s and 90s, which was Purucusa? Not sure what that means. The diffusion of the third party since 2008, after the first appearance of the official Masterpiece line was proposed by the Japanese Takara Tomy and then by Hasbro, has pushed the unofficial third party to emerge in China during the economic boom and dedicate the somewhat stagnant design by the house's officials to the Transformers Masterpiece line. The Devastator has undergone further mutations with different interpretations, which were more stable, with a more stable and anatomical structure in terms of construction, and less monolithic, which was the main characteristic of the character in the classic animated series. Okay. This choice of method has helped the manufacturers of transformable toys spend less time searching for complicated solutions that respect the basic set of the character to simplify the speed up to simplify and speed up the creation of transformable collectible toys, reducing design and manufacturing costs, production of the molds, and finally inserting additional parts to have a physiology of the model more G1 of the anime Devastator. The advent of the toy world Devastator and the commercial diffusion of the latter among the various collectors of the world and the canonicity of the masterpiece combiners was born, with additional parts forming upgraded by the same company to give Devastator the character an even more G1 and 2. Okay. Since that time, third parties have dedicated themselves to making Devastator and combiners established with a comic/video game optics, not focusing on the G1 version in its purity, which is precisely monolithic and immense and clumsy in the animated series. Therefore, Vetron Labs' choice to create Devastator G1 anime has consolidated in us the will and the greatest challenge, and also the great responsibility, to start with the first and most difficult combiner that no one has yet to make. According to our investigations, no one has yet designed a more realistic cartoon but Nia. Okay, exceptionally long answer to this question. My thoughts on this, what I think they're trying to say is that they've started to focus on the G1 Devastator because nobody has released a G1 Devastator that acts like a G1 Devastator. So I think what they're talking about is, obviously we can see the way that the G1 Devastator transforms, because it's there every time that he transforms. You see the way the bits are built, and I think they want to do something that's kind of accurate to that. I think what they're saying is the other versions of the Devastator, and especially from a size and a height comparison, have gone more with a comic book or even a computer game version. Now, they're mainly talking about size as well here, but I do think that one of the challenges that you always have with G1 is, I think when they were making the cartoon of G1, they never really knew how big Devastator was. And Devastator was multiple sizes throughout the G1 lifespan, even in the cartoon. There is no way you could get an accurate representation. You would basically have to pick, in my opinion, one episode of G1 and go with that. Or are you going to go with the movie version, because he's probably about the same size all the way through that? So I can see what they mean, I can see what they're trying to achieve. However, I don't know, even if I think, if anything, going by a G1 cartoon anime version of this is probably more difficult than anything else, because it's not ever regular. The size, it can be this big, it can be, well, bigger than this, obviously, but it can be really big, but it can also be a lot smaller. Let me know your thoughts on this one down in the comments, because I actually think they've gone a more difficult way here, especially with it being very, very different compared to episode, unless, like I say, they're going with the movie. Question number 3. You started proposing a nice project completely with a G1 design, but then you got stuck at the moment of the presentation of the prototype. Could you please explain the reasons behind the challenges at this time? So this was the first kind of warning that we got from this company when they started postponing some of the delivery windows and kicking things a little bit down the road. So the answer from them was the delay was simply caused by the complete revision of the new team that was born in the summer of 2022. The entire project carried out at first 80% of the team formed in January 2022. So 80% of the team originally were Italian. Now this was always a little bit odd, shall we say. I mean, I live in, well, I'm in the UK, so we used to be part of Europe, but let's just say well, I live on the continent of Europe, shall we say. So it was always odd for me to see an Italian company, but okay, you know, maybe the Italians can do something that we wouldn't usually get from where these companies are usually based, because I've never seen anything based in Europe. Somebody in the comments might tell me very different, but I'd never seen any Transformers third-party company based in Europe before, so that was one of the reasons why I was a little bit interested in this to start with. But of course, they're all then changed. Therefore, also, as specific in the published on the Facebook page, we postponed, for the good of the project, the date of the presentation of the prototype, because it seemed very stupid to take for granted the project would then surely have to undergo alteration, and the postponement was a decisive and responsible choice, even if unfortunately it has not lacked criticism. But we assure all of the responsibility to head on and keep promises we made. So the game is on, and the public will see this project born accordingly to our artistic, technological standards and the choices that which have never changed. Okay, so this is where we do start to have this is where the original challenges kind of came in. So the Italian team left, or certain people on the original team left, and this is also where, and I think we asked the question a lot later on, this is where people started asking questions as well around we were finding out that maybe they weren't getting paid. So some of the designers may have not been getting paid. I'm sure we'll get to that question in a second, but this is also where a lot of the controversy and people started asking questions. But I guess if you lose, if they're saying they're 80% of their team, then it makes sense that you have to stop the project. And then if a whole team changes by 80%, then projects will change. I completely understand that, but what are the reasons behind that? What are the reasons behind them leaving? Hopefully we'll get a little bit deeper into that as we go through. And then we get on to question number 3. So question 3, was the original concept for the project a KO oversized take on the NEWAGE Devastator? Now, what they say here is absolutely not. A colleague of ours jokingly sent us a 5-minute photo retouch making a joke of us, saying why not do it like this? But from this simple joke, we got an idea and a commitment that surprised whoever founded Vetron Labs. Make something totally new that no one has done yet. It was really seeing the NEWAGE G1 Devastator that created many questions for us. That's why it was released to start the spark. There is no reference to the NEWAGE KO, and it was really respect of all companies and the NEWAGE for the fantastic Transformers, the truly remarkable quality of the plastic, but no KO, oversize, or NEWAGE, or similar. Okay, so I think what they're saying is the confusion, and I can bring this bad boy around. The confusion was that somebody got a picture of this dude and then retouched him and sent it over to them. Okay, now I remember covering this at the time, and I have to say, I mean, it got released. I mean, it was released to start a spark, and I think this goes back to the original question around your marketing strategy. There is an opportunity where you overshare. You know, if a concept is a concept, and we get that, but if the concept is a touch up of somebody else's picture and that gets released to start a spark, when people don't know your company, the thought process is you are doing a KO oversized version of said product. I think that's fair enough. isn't it? I think that's a fair enough assessment of the situation. So that's where it came from. At least we have some knowledge around that. It was almost like a joke that somebody sent, a spark, but it was never intentional. My question there would definitely be, then why release it? I don't understand. Next question then, how far into the design process has the team come? So the new partnership with Robotnik Studio has created the new restyling of the project, and we estimate that the project will be completed by 2023. Obviously, we hope to make up for lost time, guaranteeing the programming and that I have assumed from the first TFCon. But for now, we aim to make up for the lost time and keep the commitment made with the set expectations. Obviously, knowing that the most established and veteran third party have times wrapped up that last year's between one release, one teaser, prototype, and some also have an incredible accumulation of renders and pre-orders without final prototype, preferably from the factory, prefabricated, sorry, from the factory. Pre-order, we think we can optimize our efforts to do our best, so the first delay, although chosen voluntarily for a valid reason, even if it has strong criticisms, we hope to compensate for this delay with something good. So, main thing, I think what they're saying here is 2023, they hope to have the project done. They're now working with Dr. Robotnik Studios. Again, pretty cool little name there for those guys. I think what they're saying is, look at somebody like Fans Toys, who take pre-orders on renders and those things sit there for years and years and years. We haven't got that many. We've just got essentially 2 projects that we have said we're going to do, with renders only for 1. So we aim to have this done, and it will probably be quicker than some of the other third-party companies. Okay, I mean, you can kind of say, you can see where they're coming at there. Let's just hope that we can really see something else. But also, you know, we have to say that someone like Fans Toys, they do have these renders sat there in the background, cool, but then they do deliver on the renders without many changes and without the other kind of challenges that you hear in the background from this company, from such a young startup company. Next question, will it be all-in-one or parts forming? Now, they say this is a question we are often asked. Virtually all combiners of almost all third parties after the Toy World Devastator with the G1 design have made use or are making use of parts forming. And those who have not done so are implemented later by main companies, official or unofficial or others. Even Menasor and Superion and Defensor and others have a G1 cartoon look for greater mechanical stability with more non-transformable parts forming, which we can say we consider perfect parts. So what they're saying is essentially all combiners, especially for stability purposes, have some kind of parts forming. I guess just from their nature, they are 5-6 bots coming together, so you can't really get away from parts forming no matter what. Obviously, then each collector personally chooses their personal preferences for the collection to put on display. A Devastator G1 anime of new design 4B, again more G1 without parts forming G1. Sorry about that sentence. It is absolutely not possible to form a mechanical point of view and make it stable with 6 characters that compose all transformations. Unfortunately, there are compromises that all Transformers designers have to do during the design. Makes sense. We know that there has to be some kind of give and take with any Transformers design. Yep, we get that. And for now, we have seen Devastators made in a workman-like manner only from the head to the pelvis that respect of the anime character. Okay, so what they're saying there is that there's versions out there that really do respect the G1 from the head to the pelvis. Which, with this new interpretation of Devastator, we want to dedicate 2 choices to collectors. To have a Devastator together with the 6 characters that combine it for at least as many G1 tunes as possible and innovate transformations to validate our choice. Our main target is to create a vintage combiner toy representation in the Devastator, again more G1 having affirmed Vintage 2.0. It represents an evolution from the past because based on a concept art from our request made to our artist Mr. Hayonas Vinci of the IO Lab Studio, where we had requested a restored and innovate version of the design for the Devastator G1 toy vintage Diaclone from Sumbo. Okay, so this here is where I would have loved to have done a follow-up question, because this, I think the translation here really is, something's getting lost in translation. Like, I understand that things have to get made, but certainly at the second point below here, I really want to ask, are you making 2 versions of Devastator here? Because what we're talking about here, like the Diaclone Vintage 2.0, you want to do the old G1 version, the toy that didn't really look like the G1 representation. I don't get that piece here. Let me know if you're able to decipher this a little bit better than myself, or VectronLabs, please mention down in the comments as well. Are you working on 2 Devastators? One that's cartoon accurate and one that's an upgrade of what we had back in the day from a G1 vintage toy design? Because I'm not sure, and if you are saying that you're working on another Devastator as well, this sounds like it complicates things rather than makes things a little bit simpler. And if you're only working on one, then I don't see how this really speaks to what we were talking about in the beginning, where we were doing something that was more cartoon orientated, because we know the original Devastator toy didn't really represent what we saw in the cartoon. This question's answer has left me with more questions than answers. Okay, so next question. The choice of dimensions for the combiner is quite original and a gamble. Why this difference in height if all collectors have other combiners from other companies with canonical Hasbro and Takara scale? So what people are saying here is, why are you going a different way? So we know that if we buy a Fans Toys combiner, or if we buy an Xt-transbots combiner, they tend to be around the same size, so that our shelf, everything is kind of together and makes sense. So what they have said is, we have a clear and precise motivation that justifies our choices for the scale of our Devastator, we have done our own research, always a warning sign there, on the original Hasbro and Takara documents. More than a gamble, it's a conscious choice and a result of a study. So basically what they're saying is they've gone and done their own research, and this is where they've come. First of all, we want to make it clear for all those who follow this fanatical channel, both Hasbro and Takara Tomy, they have never, I repeat, never until today, created a Masterpiece Combiner which defines the official scale for Masterpiece Combiners. I guess Raiden now does. I guess that's going to be the size. So, okay, I guess they've not completed that, but they kind of have with Raiden, I guess. But they made toys for the cartoon version of Devastator and other combiners for the Devastator for the last project. Hasbro has created Combiner Wars and Takara Tomy did Unite Wars, but no Transformers Masterpiece. So there's never been an official Devastator, true, but they do now have the MP Raiden, so we kind of know the scale that they are going with here. The canonical scale that collectors can keep as a metric basis for Transformers Masterpiece Collection can be chosen individually at the moment, not as a canonical height for Masterpiece projects, but the reference for the SETI of the cartoon and the official IDW licensed document Transformers the Arc, a complete compendium of character designs. So what they're saying is that this Arc, complete compendium of characters, this is where people are kind of getting that scale from. Here we have examined 2 pages dedicated to the scale of SETI used for the G1 cartoons, where they act as a comparison element for the height of Optimus Prime and Megatron as a comparison element, and also Devystator himself, therefore an official canon of the parent companies that they created. Transformers brand, nothing officially exists yet, but in this book, which is then an official document, and there are 4 possible height variations for combiners. Okay, collectors have given a ladder made by third-party Toy World for its Devastator as canon. So why not start another ladder? Why not? All the ladders. And this is always considered by Hasbro and always promoted by another Devastator. Then, obviously, which with the advent of Legends, Masterpiece Scale combiners, and that of Optimus and Magic Square, with a Toy World Devastator together, we can imagine that no one will say Devastator is too big, but it is good together. Obviously, the choice we made will be the key to making combiners, which is the same Let's start that one again. Obviously, the choice we made will be the key to making combiners with the same proportions and also the creation of Omega Supreme, but this change is for combiners and Omega Supreme, not for other characters, excluding Transformers, Titans, and also Planetoids. So I think what they're trying to say here is that there's not really an official size, because Takara haven't released one yet, although they kind of have now, and they're saying that everybody kind of uses what third parties say, what Toy World started, and everyone goes off that. I get it, but I think what they're missing is what people are saying, that they feel that the Devastator could be too big. And what you're saying is that if you get our Devastator and you want everything in proportion, you got to continue to buy our products. Are people going to invest in a new company straight away with a new scale that nothing else fits with on their shelf? People who care about that, me personally, I don't care. I buy products that I think are good. I don't care. I mean, I've got 2 or 3 Devastators in my collection, and they are 3 different sizes. Size to me really doesn't matter. I have a Prime shelf, I've got a Decepticon shelf, I've got a Megatron shelf with all my Megatrons on a shelf and all my Primes on another shelf, so I don't really care about that. But there are people who do, and I think when you're trying to create your own size range, I think this is where you may fall into some challenges. That's it. I think a lot of people will be, this doesn't fit on my shelf. I have like one of each character. The people like me who buy multiple versions of the same character, they're good with this. But I think for those people who, I have a Devastator, I have a Megatron, I have a Prime, they're the people who you're just kind of turning off because they have preset in their head, and you would have to change that mindset with these people by coming out with a good reason for why this is suddenly bigger than everything else. And I think, again, for me, when we're saying that this is G1 cartoon orientated, Devastator was multiple sizes. Even when we look at something like Transformers Devastation, he's depicted in a different size there compared to everything else. So I think, again, this is just where we're just size wise that they're choosing. It's brave Some people like myself won't care, but there will be a lot of people out there, I think, who this is really just a turn-off point for them. The same reason they wouldn't pick up what I think is a great Devastator from New Age because it's too small. They may not pick this up because it's too big. It's just simple. Next question. And now things are going to get a little bit... We bring the spice now, right? Now comes a little bit of the old spice. So everyone talks about you being a scam company that doesn't pay employees. Why do you think you have developed this reputation? Okay, so this, as you can imagine, is a long answer. So strap yourselves in, people, because this is a longer one. We'll start off with what they are saying, and they've put this in, by the way. This is the premise here was put in by Vetron Labs. It was not put in by myself. All people who have agreed to work with us regularly and transparently, agreed by both parties in Italy or in the world from the first official day of this life of a new third party, have always been paid without exception. There have been short payment delays for cross-checks, corrections, work, recognition, or illness that have every startup in the world faces from the starting period, especially during the consolidation of a team. In an interesting international period, I think they may be talking about the kind of challenges that we had around viruses. However, I want to clarify, all who have had assignments, agreed and accepted estimates have always been paid. That are receipts for the bank transactions that have been recorded and archived by our accountants demonstrate the real reoccurrence of each payment and bank transaction carried out successfully for each agreement taken regularly by both parties. From us, no bluffs, no false information, and information published has not been well said, but has been minutely distorted by smartass who do this kind of thing without even transparency, debate, or a real interview to reply to no fake interview. Okay, so premise here. So the premise is originally people were not getting paid for the work they were doing for this company. What Vetron Labs are saying here is actually we've got the checks, we have the statements, we are coming with the literal receipts, I guess, to say that everybody has been paid. Now, what I can say here is the moment I said I was going to do this, somebody did reach out to me and say that they were willing to come on and be on the record to say that they have had challenges with this actual challenge. Now, I still need to link back up with this person, but where we're saying no transparency, no real debate, no real interview, no fake interview or whatever it is, or real interview to reply, they are willing to come on and speak to me. I don't know if they're going to be doing it live, but they are willing to come and speak to me about this. So we will get an update on this from both sides. I just wanted to make sure that I'd got this statement from other people before I can then go back and speak to some of the other people that have reached out to me here. So just wanted to also set my own premise that I understand where they're coming from. They're saying that they've got receipts, they've got everything, people have been paid, but I would also say that people are willing to talk about this and come and speak to me, which I think they're saying down the bottom that actually people aren't willing to talk about this. I have to say they are, and they are willing to speak to me about it. So we then go on. There have been agreements made verbally in Italian, territorially, and written in digital written from outside the Italian territory, and respect yourself. Who made us estimates in our specific request and was then paid off after an acceptance contest of both parties. Payments made at the end of the work or before the end of the work or during the work, and also wrapped up in advance, and we have documented evidence that represents inaudible legal proof. So what they're saying is basically we've paid everything. Okay, so we paid people off before, during, after, everything we've promised. We have paid all these people in Italy. We have paid them for their work. There have been people who have been recommended by those who have been in the graphics industry for years and have chosen ones, and we have personally sought out. There are those who have remained faithful, but there are those who are playing the double game. Double dealers. Double dealers in the graphics industry. Or counterpunch and punch stealer, maybe? Those who crashed, those who thought they were dishonest by doing the false and giving the real, and then thought of extorting favoritism. Okay. There are those who left after an ignorant communication between friend members and those who did not want to be paid by refusing payment. Those who acted behind their backs without honesty, pretending to be transparent, but it was not, and acted by sending private telephone contacts to people of the Social Transformers Group Italy without having authorization, receiving threats and messages, bypassing the law, and then childish excuses. Okay, so it sounds like whatever happened in Italy, it sounds like it's all been very bitter. So it seems to be there was some friendship communications, and this, bear in mind, this is 80% of the people that were there as well, but it all seems to have really, really fallen to pieces in a bad way. This has been a bad divorce between this company and everybody else in Italy. Those who thought social networks or recommending of other strangers have indirectly or deliberately created confusion only to create and undermine disorder because perhaps they are not suitable for work in this sector and are not appreciative or refusal, or who simply showed a little humility and a lack of professionalism, using their personal status as an excuse to justify irrational behaviors that should be excluded in the workplace. There are documented digital proofs that legally demonstrate these things we say are true, concrete, and not as a result of minds deviating from reality. Woo! Alright, okay, so yeah, not holding back there on their criticism of the people who used to be there. Lack of professionalism, lack of professional statements. Like I said, sounds like everything went really bad with that team over in Italy. And, you know, as a breakup would, maybe there's been some unprofessionalism that's gone on. Now, Vetron are saying that they have documentation, they have digital proofs that show everything went awry and it was nothing to do with them. I have not seen or been sent any of this. Again, this is just them saying that they had this, and I do have this other party that now wants to speak to me as well. Probably something to do with this. So we will, hopefully, fingers crossed, get both sides of this argument. Moving on then, this part of the Italian team was a sort of minestrone vegetable soup of united friends, which were only 3 of these operatives pre-established agreements, and the rest then concretely only a part kept aloof, disappeared, and every now and then shows some adolescent outburst. So okay, so it looks like it was still quite a small team, but some of them are being quiet, but other of them pop up and have adolescent outbursts, as Vetron Labs are calling it. Others have remained faithful and still work out with no problems, always paid on a project basis. However, the problems evidently with a bad apple in the Italian team, which then a little bit everybody ate just because of friendships. Okay, so one bad apple essentially has spoiled the whole basket, I guess what they're saying here, because they all knew, and there was one person who was, let's just say, a little bit vexed about everything in the situation, and because they were all friends, the vexing at the Vetron Labs kind of spread across the rest. Okay. In the end, there are those who understood that it was a bad apple that spat out the bite. Those who used I guess machinations to avoid relation from the same apple that was part of groups of Transformers Italy and other famous groups abroad, so simply acted behind the rotten apple, who pretended not to notice and then hit from behind using a second, third or fourth people. So I guess what they're saying is that this rotten apple that they keep talking about, after they thought everything had been fixed, was then using like Manchurian candidate kind of people to go to battle for them against Vetron Labs, I guess, instead of coming forward themselves. So what to say? A lot of heart at the beginning, then little brain and little determination to bring the project to a conclusion. However, the rotten seed was then blossomed by a single unstable individual who at least we initially thought was normal, who has commissioned to do a third-party design with a good heart, with good expectations from us who had recommended him. However, this element and another, who has never been formalized as our collaborator, had contracts or work agreements or assignments, they have not for any reason cancelled either the project or the Vetron Labs brand. So seems again like they're saying that there was somebody who was maybe not necessarily supposed to be working on the project or officially working on the project, but they were causing all kind of problems where they do still have some of these people working with the project, or they have left the project with no problems whatsoever. The recent episode of the working reports on the old Vetron teams, published as a true and elaborated and not being transparently explored by a real debate, but manipulated and distorted, are the result of two individuals, a Canadian freelancer, the plot thickens, who has his own YouTube channel and who works with other third party from time to time, a former Sicilian 3D designer, which then eventually we realized he was a designer in his spare time and not a professional. However, he has worked for us and has been paid. We want to remember for that, for those who read, and gave him an interview released from an American YouTuber many followed, not only saying information of pure fantasy, but also wondering if he really worked for us. Information from other companies, because the things he said out loud, the choices of materials, the production, but maybe extrapolated to be the future from someone who maybe got a little crazy, and maybe he was the one who created the third party and had high profile jobs. We ask ourselves this question too. He not only gave false information, but passed off as true and defined himself as the head designer. Hilarious, as part of everyone in the team who would think themselves more to shame than us. However, we were very disappointed by the American YouTuber who we thought was a professional to do an interview by evaluating. We thought we'd interviewed well, and not only deliberately and defamated the interview, but no debate from us two parts. But okay, this is more visibility, perhaps more money, integral vision, right? We respect your style. Okay, so obviously this is referring to the Bobby interview, so the plot kind of thickens again, and I don't think we even need to think about whether or not they are referring to Bobby here, but in bold. Sorry, Bobby, but apparently carrying out an interview did not endorse Vetron or whoever thought of letting us close to discredit the project. We were just much more surprised by you than those who defamed us for the sake of it. By this are deepening the information you receive without even contacting us, taking everything from granted. Your voluntary stance is evident, which has helped us to better understand why you do it. We advise you in the future criticism for us, for others, to do it for free and no sell from Patreon and integral version good work. So I guess they're throwing a little bit of shade there on Bobby Skullface as well, on this. Hey, I don't know what's gone on there. I like what Bobby does. I don't want to throw any shade on Bobby here, but it looks like they seem a bit vexed that Bobby seems to have thrown them a little bit under the bridge, truck, prime, and not really reached out to them for further clarification on certain concepts. So the final point here now, well, it says final point, but we're still getting through this one, right? We're still getting through this. I did say strap in. This was a long answer. Finally, to the Canadian freelance of Xt-transbots who wanted to work at Vetron and then double and triple the game to work at passing confidential matter from other third parties to try and gain trust before the first teaser and to peddle his work as a simple free verification test to evaluate his dubious competence and then turn out to be a scam copy because he copied from book. You can draw Transformers by transfer. sorry. Okay, so they've woo. Okay, so because he copied from a book. Sorry, I should have pre-read this. Okay, let's try this again. So, because it was copied from a book, you can draw Transformers. This is so difficult. You can draw Transformers by Simon Furman. From the book, You Can Draw Transformers by Simon Furman and Guido Guida. And the character was Unicron, that was the exact same pose with her legs open. She said it was a figment of her mind that he passed off as his own, as if it was something original. So it looks like this designer here has copied from You Can Draw Transformers, showed them this, and they've gone, wow, that's a good drawing. You could probably design as something pretty interesting. In fact, the whole Vetron Lab teams, including IO Lab Studio, defined this subject as a character to be avoided. And of this, we have a digital documentation of our conversation as legal proof that we are not telling stories. However, we have evidence collaboration with former Sicilian 3D designer with the Canadian freelancer that he had asked for Pantones, which are official authorization without having agreed on the quote, to be evaluated and accepted without having signed an acceptance contract. Everything has everything was done under the counter and then we had accepted after all. Absolutely not. Defamation, work competencies for the act of his sabotage. Okay, so what they're saying is this person sent them a drawing. They said, okay, this looks okay, but then it all fell apart because this wasn't an original drawing. They say that this person should be avoided. And again, they're saying that they have all of these interactions documented and the stuff going on. Personally, I've not seen anything in it, and they've not brought anything to the table. So this, again, if we get the one-to-one interview, is probably something that we would follow up a little bit on here. But looks like they've been kind of catfished, essentially, by someone who took something out of Transformers drawing for dummies or whatever. So we want to point out that we have official digital proof and written voice and email chat exchanged, and also investigations carried out for cross-checking made by a professional who legally demonstrate our honest and non-scam positions, and that all this childish defamation work was done by two people, one paid, sorry, let's correct, this is more paid, and another never assigned to do a job for us directly. I want to be clear that even though two founding partners were against it, one have wanted to ask and sign an employment contract for a Canadian freelance if was ever asked to work and regularize an instance from a Sicilian 3D designer without we have the authorization, assuming responsibility, never. So this contract was never assigned from a Canadian freelance, only NDA, as much as it was possible to have the worth that we had done. Okay, so people were under NDAs, and they're saying, again, this was the work of two people. One worked for them, maybe one didn't work for them, but this is two people going around creating mayhem and mischief wherever they go. Really genius Canadian freelance, also open fund, unpaid people from Vetron Labs. Something really not slimy and stupid but ridiculous. Defines himself as scammed. Defines himself as the first scammed in TFW 2005, and we have full and not partial documents of this. We conclude by stating without prejudice, with extreme professionalism, that Vetron Lab does not and will never bend to the blackmail of two discarded or thrown out individuals from social communities for the purpose of discrediting us with their affiliates. If they want to publish their negative comments in the historical chat for us, then they can do it forever, and even with more emphasis and negativity. We have an office outside Europe, but payments are always made to those who work for arrangements. So basically what they're saying is they pay their people. Okay, so this was the work of bad apples, and maybe these people have been elevated by other people, and they're saying they've got the receipts. But Vetron, and you know, I'm seeing both sides of the argument here. Personally, I have not seen the receipts from yourselves. You've sent this statement to me. Perfect. But we're still not seeing any kind of receipts. And these people, again, I don't know who, because you mentioned quite a few people. They have reached out to me as well. So I may, you know, also speak to them and see their side of it. And then we can see where we go from there. But basically what they're saying is that they pay their people, and this is the work of two bad bunches, or bad apples, as they say. The next question: if any member of the production team did not get paid, what was the reason? What measures have you now taken to ensure this does not happen again? Well, what they're saying is all appointments with us have been paid as previously answered. Obviously, what we do ask and how do we behave? Whatever nationality, gender, religion, most established freelancer, or multi-graduate professional or researcher, you can ask us for work by email or chat directly to us on the Vetron Labs Facebook page. We will arrange an interview on Skype, if not the same country even, sign a confidentiality agreement, and take a free test upon request, which is based on a referral verification of the candidate's professional and working capacity. Obviously, the test excluded for veteran professionals and known in the world, and the test is used for jobs but always remains in file confidential from a tangible proof of the candidate's ability. After this first step, a second interview takes place to discuss and agree on a draft working contract together, agreements, times, results, payments, progress, and finally validate the official project work for mutual acceptance and mutual agreements and signed documents. So what they're saying is that during the hiring process, then they are now being a little bit more thorough during the hiring process, and they're starting to make sure that these things are just better. There's more contracts involved, there's tests involved, and they've also given if you want to go and work for them, I guess they've just done a job advertisement there as well on how to get hired by Vetron Labs. This procedure applies to anyone in the world and projects for those who work for us getting paid after a job and to get the job requested without problems and the contract respected by both parties under legal protection. So, contracts, legal protection for both parties, good. All above protect the information that falls within the industry secrets, so they're talking about NDAs, restricted trademark and not invented for the imagination. Its parties filled in as a result of work, highly qualified team, artists and engineers, no designer bakes. The recommendation will no longer be accepted by us for final choice for a new candidate, even if it falls within the effective sphere of friends or family, as has happened in the past, but this will go on merit after having both done an interview and an interior test written above with the real capacity candidate. I will repeat that each agreement will be validated in a digital written form, documents, safeguards, payments, deliveries, behaviors. Yeah. So we think that no one should object to this method and how it works. So what they're saying is they've improved their methods of how they recruit. What they've not said here, which is what people asked, is to still make sure that people are getting paid. Now, there is more contracts. Maybe there was no contract involved before, and that was one of the problems that they had, but at least their hiring practices now are more, what I would say, more foolproof, and that they have more robust recruitment processes. They don't work off my mate can draw. Do you want to hire him? Yeah, sounds good. So they don't work like that anymore, right? Hopefully people won't be fooling them with my first Transformers drawing pictures anymore. Next question. How big is the current team working on Devastator? We are the first third party to expose ourselves directly and see it for how we enjoy being the first, both positively and negatively. We can honestly declare that at the moment there are 3 members, of which have changed in the last year. 4 veteran members in Italy, and abroad the old team to get 7, plus we have partnership from Robotnik Studios is made up of 3 engineers and 3 graphic engineers, so, and operates in 3 countries in Europe. For production, we have 3 references. So I think the full team is 7, 10 or 13, I think, if they're saying that the Vectron is 6. 3 engineers, 3 graphic designers. I think the full team then is around 13 people. How does the team behind Devastator intend to keep the project alive and make sure it gets released eventually? Obviously, the project is now managed by professionals with a proven concrete professionalism curriculum where we have no risk of being burned again. They gave us time estimate, and we think we won't be victims of further postponements for this, would be victims of further postponements. For its release, we will update the information for the official presentation of the prototype. However, we guarantee the release and not illusion of the release. It is a complex project and different from and original, therefore it deserves the time it's required to have a good product. Of course, we apologize for the delay. Everything is going better with our professionalism. So I think what they're saying is that they're looking at the timelines, they're confident with the timelines, and it's coming when it's ready, which is good. I like, you know, I love computer games and things like that, and I'm a big fan of, if something gets delayed, I'm good with that delay, as long as what we get at the end is not a piece of crap. And it's not cyberpunk, it's something that's much better, you know? When something gets delayed and it still comes and it's crap, then you ask why they even bothered to delay. If you tell me you're going to delay it till it's ready and then it comes and it's good, I'm good with that. Next question. Has it been planned out from a production process on Devastator is going to proceed? Do you have a new critical path you could share? So, the planning of the work, all the various phases of realization and the production has already been created as a business plan. Obviously, other information has been updated with the new team, with the new partnership. For now, this information is only at the discretion of the staff. So yeah, there is a new critical path, there is a new plan, but they ain't going to tell us yet. So the next question is around the fact that they already have their pre-orders up on Show Z. So one of the questions that we asked were, what proof did you need to give to Show Z to get a pre-order to go live? Honestly speaking, how it was Show Z first who contacted us. I think that's quite interesting in itself, right? That somebody puts a picture out and it's Show Z that contacts them, not them that contact Show Z. That for me is enlightening. Us directly on Messenger before the Los Angeles teaser, where we posted the first images on our Facebook of the trailer images. From there, they asked us for brief information, how many units will come out, what prices based on a quantity. This seemed to us a good way to verify both sides, whether the product is liked and if it's concrete and is being completed. We believe that Show Z is an excellent commercial product portal and that it offers many commercial opportunities, but also useful for operational statistics for the product and the pre-orders. So that for me, that's quite interesting, that what they seem to be alluding to here is that they, plus maybe other people, and this could be why we see a delay on some projects. People use Show Z almost like a gauge to see if something is going to be popular. So here's my idea. I want to make a brand new third-party Retgar that's more IDW inspired. Here's my drawing. Here's my CAD drawing. I put it on Show Z, and it's almost like a, not necessarily a Kickstarter, but it's a good way for me to gauge the popularity. If it's not popular, I won't make it. And it was Show Z that reached out to them. I find that very enlightening. Are you currently receiving any money from Show Z for any of the pre-orders? We want to clarify, because so many ask us. We do not take any money for pre-orders made by Show Z. This is a symbolic amount chosen by Show Z. It's a value that customers pay only to Show Z. We think that in the event the product is not released, Shozi will issue refunds or vouchers for further orders. What happens within Shozi portal is exclusively managed by Shozi privately. What we also do is campaign, advertisement, and commercial investigation on the product, and for the product we will prepare their marketing. Obviously, we too have expressed curiosity in this, since as a new third party, but the answer was mandatory only part of Shozi, no money to companies, only many years of evident commercial testing and running in commercial activities. They help speed up finding contractors and economic support for the financing of molds and for the production, but no money to the upfront costs to us or anyone. So for the unbelievers who believe that we ask for money and then take the money, they better understand a better real news and not the stories told by trivial and unprofessional people. Let's not speculate and ask for money until we have finished and submitted the official prototype, which has received confirmation of the final price, and we will be published any information on our website. Okay, so what they're saying there is that currently they are not getting any money from this project whatsoever. Anything you put up on Shozi goes directly to Shozi, and it looks like Shozi kind of support maybe with finding places to make these products. Maybe I'm reading into this a little bit wrong, but that's interesting. That was one of the most interesting parts of this for me, understanding the kind of things that happen with Shozi and those pre-orders that we see up there all the time. Next question: why tease Megatron as a second project when you are stuck on your first project? Megatron was the project that was to be during stage 5 of the Devastator project, and that was to be presented basically now in January 2023 as per the initial business plan, and the project was not cancelled, but it was simply postponed and will be resumed as soon as possible. Unfortunately shown 9 months late, but a repeat for those who discarded or cancelled. Okay, so it was part of your business plan, I get that. I think what I wanted to understand here was why tease a Megatron when you haven't finished your original project and there was so many changes. This is what I don't understand. I don't understand when you've taken on something that is 6 bots. It's 6 bots and you've taken on a 7th bot that's something else. That I still don't understand, and I would still like more clarification in and around that. So now we get into a little bit more of that spice. We'll just sprinkle in a little bit more of that spice on here. Did you send a letter to Keith threatening his reputation? So for those of you who don't know, Keith is Xt-transbots and also KFC toys. And what we asked then is, if yes, please can you add some context? Now, what they've said here is, we prefer to answer these 2 questions. We prefer to answer these 2 questions together. Makes sense. This really does make sense. We contacted Keith because besides being Xt-transbots fans ourselves, we have great respect for Keith. We know many designers who work for Keith and for other third party both in Italy and abroad. We have always maintained highly professional and discreet relationship with everybody for the projects we do and the projects of others. Furthermore, one of our founding partners was born and his family lives in the same city where Keith lives and has the factory, and no one has ever created problems for anyone. So basically there was some kind of relationship there already, maybe some family orientated, and they're also big fans of XTB. a Canadian freelancer who worked, a Canadian freelancer of his who worked and we think still works for him again before TF Los Angeles 2022. He had initially contacted us to work with us too. This is the person who we'd already heard from, right? This is the person who they spoke about before. But we seemed a bit no normal to have a designer who works for two companies in the same sector. Is a warning and also a mistake and a risk. However, without any working relationship with us, before we asked him to take free suitability tests to work for us, he voluntarily sent graphic designer drafts and drawings of works and previews for what Keith was doing out of favoritism, thinking he had information from us. But the I.O. Lau team immediately warned us. The founding partner in charge of managing the first team felt complete to warn Keith that his Canadian team was harming and betraying him, to evaluate the situation, and that from our part we will never have harmed Keith and Xt-transbots. So this looks like somebody who worked for Keith was also this person who was in between the two companies and was actually sending some of the designs for Keith over to Vetron Labs, and they who of course are working on a Devastator as well, so I should probably preference that as well. So they told Keith that they had this. He sent us the Xt-transbot scrapper, the Devystator images, before Keith had published on Facebook before TFCon. Pantons used for Ultra Magnus in the box, graphics, projects, all of this stuff that they're basically getting ready to release and had recently been submitted. So they'd been sent a load of stuff for Xt-transbots as almost like a job application for this dude. Its accessories, which currently up for pre-order, and much more. I don't know what to say. For this reason, Keith should better check who he hires. He naively made the same mistake as us, trusting too much who is a fan, who is a collector, or too fanatic. Perhaps these things are widespread among companies in China, where two companies partners explain to us that they can often, where competitor is ruthless attempts to where competitors ruthlessly and attempts to sabotage the molds for figures planned or wanted for the sole purpose of damaging. However, this is not our style. We can make, despite purpose or profound knife, which is Canadian, who may seem likable and available, is not a professional but can guarantee trust. We also know that the work identifies us as an original truth behind professionalism, study, imitation, or a copy. We believe we are honest, caring professionals with our competitors. So I think they're saying that they've been sent this, and this threatening letter or threatening his reputation could have been them saying, we've got the plans accidentally maybe for your upcoming bots, but they are saying here, yes, they received Xt-transbots designs, graphics and stuff before maybe even Keith had published some of these, and I'm not sure what the communication was then back to Keith to say that they had these, but again, it seems the work of this Canadian freelancer who seems a little bit challenging for Vetron Labs, but of course we only have one side of the story at the moment. This is something that you know, when I was asking the question, I definitely need to learn a little bit more about this topic myself. Perhaps I can get time to speak with somebody else who's involved in this situation to maybe understand it a little bit better. The next question: with all the questions around this project, have some lost faith in it? Do you have a strategy to get people reinvested? So a company that has yet to show a public product gains trust exclusively by demonstrating the work that it has promised born. Not only represents and declares designs expectations and is concrete, but also follows a chosen program who doubted and understood that we are not joking. The real scam was only the result of those who wanted to make it look like a scam but failed. If from all of this chaos we create a good product that pleases, then it will be a source of pride and redemption and give us the extra gear also to other companies, because we have already forged ourselves at the beginning with insults. Forged ourselves at the beginning with insults and more. This only helps what we do deliver more and offers additional fuel to do more without stopping. Being too naive at the beginning with good intentions for this has been a mistake, but we go on. So I think, again, sorry for the way this is translating. It's scrambling my brains trying to read some of this, but I think basically what they're saying here is that the way that they hope to win everybody back is by releasing a good product. And I would have to agree that, you know, there may be some stuff that's gone on in the background, and you know, we will hear other sides of this, I'm sure, around who has been paid, who hasn't been paid, all of these kind of things. But you know, if they end up releasing a good project, these are the things that tend to win people back, right? If the project comes out and it's not good, or it doesn't release, the proof will definitely be in the pudding, or as they've said, the proof is what has been promised to be born. Finally, they offer some advice. It's always, if anybody offers them advice requested, it's taken under examination now and evaluated whether to make it real or not according to the identification standards and the corporate principles. If this helps us to do better, okay. If we think it doesn't agree with our project, then we explain, discuss without any problems. We are a third party with open doors to everybody, and we are available and professional. However, we have put a few filters on for bad apples. So what they're saying there is that basically they're all set up. They're taking advice from some people, but they're all set up, and they think that they've now got out of what they would perceive as some bad apples within the bucket. Finally, they just want to thank me, I guess, for demonstrating honesty, professionalism, transparency with my YouTube channel, and also they'll be happy to be our guests again. And they also thank you all very much for your questions, and we hope that the answers have been exhaustive, and they just say thanks from Vetron Lab Toys and Co. So that's it. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. They're the questions, they're the responses. I think we are a little bit clearer. I have a little bit more clarity around the situation. I personally really enjoyed just understanding that little bit more about what goes on at Show Z. Actually, as well, that was helpful for my understanding about when I put a pre-order in at Show Z. What does that look like? How does that work? Let me know your thoughts on this one down in the comments. And as always, I'll see you in my new video. All right, team, in a bit. Peace!